Investigators are combing through thousands of photographs of the bomb scene tonight, but what do they reveal? Joining me now is Michael Mukasey, the former Attorney General under President George W. Bush, and CNN terrorism contributor Paul Cruikshank, and back with me Bob Baer, Chad Sweet and Bill Gavin. Welcome to you both. Let me start with you, Mike Mukasey, if I can. What is your overview here? You've been in a top position in a government that had to deal with stuff like this.
Well, the overview is that we're down to homemade devices, fabricated devices. This is not 9/11, not anything near 9/11, and yet we could have had the same thing in Times Square. It didn't go off. We were lucky. We ducked that one, but this one did. And so that's the level that we're dealing with, and that seems to be the new approach.
Is it, we do not know who has done this, and I keep stressing that. This is speculative theorizing, but with experts. Is your head moving towards Al-Qaeda, as many others seem to be?
As the two of the three people you spoke to just a minute ago were, it is tending toward that, particularly if out that we've gotten different reports on one suspect or two. If it's one suspect, then you know this could be the Unabomber or somebody like Eric Rudolph or somebody like that. But when you start to get to two people, then you're getting closer to a sort of coordinated attack with obviously more than one person, and the likelihood that somebody just went off on a tear being diminished.
Paul Cruikshank, when we spoke the other night, you mentioned this Inspire magazine, which is a periodical magazine basically produced by Al-Qaeda supporters, and in it is this extraordinarily explicit, detailed account of how you use a pressure cooker as a bomb. And this is the kind of pressure cooker here which was used, we believe, at the Boston Marathon. It's pretty small, it's quite firm and heavy actually, but I would imagine extremely easy to use, particularly if you have this manual from people telling you how to do it.
Well, that's right. It's a 7-page how-to guide. It was put out by the group in English in the summer of 2010. And it's been linked to multiple terrorism plots by Islamists on both sides of the Atlantic in the UK in 2010, but also here in the United States, 2 plots in 2011. So the question is, you know, may this be a link to Islamists? But similar devices have also been used by right-wing extremist groups, white supremacist groups in the United States. So I'm not sure whether it really does narrow the playing field of who's responsible.
Chad Sweet, if you were at the Homeland Security Department now, given this stuff's all over the internet, clearly any crackpot out there can read this kind of thing and try and emulate, try and copycat. It creates a whole new world of amateur terrorist activity. What do you do about that?
Well, you defeat a network with a network. We should flip the use of the internet to our advantage, which is we need to empower citizens and our first responders who are on the front line to be able to do the reverse, which is there's a tremendous opportunity to crowdsource, which means use this internet in the same way that it's somewhat enabling these terrorists. We can enable our citizens and our first responders to equally be able to identify signatures that this is happening. And so right now, if you think about the analogy of a starfish or a spider, if a starfish ends up getting cut off an arm, it continues to grow. If a spider does, it dies. In the case of Al-Qaeda, it's more like the starfish. Bin Laden was killed, al-Maliki was killed, etc. But this is continuing to metastasize, and so Generation 2.0 of leaderless jihad, they are going to use the internet. This is a younger generation, and it's imperative, Pierce, that we use the internet to actually teach our people and first responders to identify this. And there are programs like Tripwire at DHS and the Office of Bombing Prevention that are being cut by over 50%. We're spending less than 1% of the money we spent on defeating IED in Iraq and Afghanistan. This is an opportunity now to do that, to cross-apply that at home.
Right. Michael Mukasey, has there been a failure of intelligence? If it turns out this was an Al-Qaeda hit on a relatively soft target like the Boston Marathon, would heads have to roll? Is this a failure?
Not necessarily. If it turns out that it's an Al-Qaeda hit that was coordinated by Al-Qaeda from abroad, then you would think that's something that should have been detected. But it doesn't have the hallmarks of that. It does have the hallmarks of something that is put together on an ad hoc basis, and something that is much more improvisational than a long-distance Al-Qaeda call.
The final question for you, Bob Baer, very quickly if you don't mind. Do you think it's a failure of intelligence? You've been part of the CIA for many years.
No, we can't stop all these groups. There's just no way. They're too small. You can get people in the country all you want. It's not a failure of intelligence.
Okay, Bob Baer, Chad Sweet, Bill Gavin, Paul Cruikshank, and Michael McKay.